I've been involved in retail now for 25 plus years in many guises, including kind of a 10-year stint in Asia. And while I was there, I kind of really saw digitalization just take off. We went from a vibrant retail environment to retailers who just weren't making any money because everything had moved online. I began to realize there's really some magic in the technology that Veloq has and the ability to orchestrate, get full basket deliveries with tight windows really is quite special. The software they built is really quite special.
Based on what I hear, the grocers really need to reimagine themselves with you.
Our automated FCs can orchestrate all the channels we're talking about, be it chill, be it fresh, be it bakery, be it pharmacy.
What are we doing different here that we should learn from Asia?
If you want to do a proper grocery shop, you will never be able to replicate the customer experience on a general platform.
I really wonder why you want to start giving it away to your competition. Is it you guys are that confident?
Online grocery, it is a tough business. You need to build scale in each market you're in.
Hello, everyone. We're back on Boolanga Talks. It's Stefan here. And today I have a very exciting guest for you, Richard McKenzie, the CEO of software provider for e-grocers, Veloq. Richard, great to meet you. Thank you very much for joining.
Stefan, it's an absolute pleasure to be here. I'm looking forward to talking about my favorite topic of conversation.
Awesome. Could you please start with introducing yourself and introducing the company? I'm sure for the industry, the name is pretty new.
It is indeed, in fact, very new. So, Stefan, thank you. So personally, I've been involved in retail now for 25 plus years in many guises, including kind of a 10-year stint in Asia. And while I was there, I kind of really saw digitalization just take off. And I really saw how kind of we went from a vibrant retail environment to retailers who just weren't making any money and because everything had moved online. And that really just got me excited by what you can do online with retail. When I moved back this side of the world, I got into providing solutions and trying to help particularly grocers in this space. And then a few months ago, I got a call from Veloq. And the idea was, let's use our technology to help other grocers be successful online. And initially, Veloq's probably in kind of some markets not the best known name, but actually as I dug into it, I began to realize there's really some magic in the technology that Veloq has, and the ability to orchestrate, get full basket deliveries in 3 hours with tight windows really is quite special. The software they built is really quite special. So I seized the opportunity with both hands to really take that technology, make it available to others, and hence Veloq was born, which is where we are today.
Very exciting. So we have exclusivity here, right? The new arm of Veloq, giving the opportunity to the retailers to digitalize themselves. Is that correct?
We're here to help particularly grocers digitalize themselves and both be successful online economically, but also just give their customers just a really outstanding experience. Which is what Veloq has been doing now for 10 years. It has been growing and making its customers really quite delighted when you talk to them.
Very interesting. I don't hide it. I'm quite a fan of Veloq and what you guys are doing in approaching digital groceries and the quality that you're doing it with and the efficiency that you guys are delivering. And my first question would be, how would you describe and characterize the online grocery market nowadays?
So I think to do that, you've kind of got to go back to COVID. And we all got very excited during COVID. Then literally the market kind of doubled overnight. And some of us were out there breathlessly predicting it's now going to go to 30, 40, 50% of grocery. But what, of course, happened is there was some really pretty awful service that happened during that time. So particularly the grocers who were picking out of stores, they were fighting with their customers. The supply chains were down, and you put in an order for 30 items, only 15 would turn up. So the way I see the story is the grocers kind of let down their customers, probably not through the fault of their own during that time, and people got disillusioned with e-grocery. And that's why you saw this slump, frankly, after COVID, and people went back into the shops. But now we've kind of reached that point where actually you've got sustainable growth again, and you really are seeing, customers want it. Customers want the convenience of online grocery. And where it's being offered well, you are now seeing really strong growth. On the other side, from the point of view of the grocers, it's been pretty unloved. It's been this channel that's been, I don't know, 3, 4, 5% of their sales. So it's small. It's typically pretty low profit. It's difficult to operate because it's not a shop. You're having to worry about delivery drivers. You're having to worry about baskets, not shops, in terms of the unit of economics. And as a result, it's kind of been starved of focus and investment when you look at many of the big grocers out there. But it's now got to this point, which I think is a tipping point in the market, where the market is growing. It's clearly sustainable. It's clearly wanted by customers. So it's getting too big to ignore. And I think there's a real strategic question for a grocer now, which is, do I take this seriously and invest, or do I let others steal my customers? And I think that's the kind of problem, and that's the problem statement we're here to solve, that actually we can help them invest. We can help them invest in a way that is economically attractive, and we can help them invest in a way that delights their customers. And therefore they can take their fair share of this market or more.
So is it about the penetration and the critical mass of this penetration and user stickiness, if I can call it this way, that is bringing us to this tipping point when the grocers have to make their choice? Either they're going with the innovation, or they bet on offline and the existing customer behavior?
Yeah, I think I'd put it slightly differently. I think it's just getting to a size where if you're sitting in the boardroom of a major grocer, you've kind of got no choice but to have a strategy. And honestly, too often that strategy has been, let's ignore it. We'll do it out of the stores. And as we all know, stores are just not a great way of fulfilling online grocery, because you're competing with your own customers. You're sending a guy from the back of the store to put it on the shelf. Then somebody's picking it. So you're touching the product lots of times, so it's inefficient, and you're competing with your own customers for the stock. So that kind of low investment model is becoming increasingly unsatisfactory for them. And as you're looking at particularly the bigger grocers, they're taking really significant share. They're typically growing pretty damn fast now. I think you've got to say this isn't optional. This is something we've got to go and do properly.
And is it a global trend that you see everywhere, or it's rather kind of region-based, country-based, city-based?
It's both. Clearly there are countries and markets that are ahead. And I think those are typically the ones where players have invested. If you look at, take Czechia and take Prague, Rolex really has driven that market. And online penetration is high.
The highest in Europe, probably.
Probably the highest in Europe, and it's growing at probably one of the fastest rates in Europe because Rolex driving it. And that's because Rolex is sitting here and we're investing every day in the customer proposition, and more customers are wanting to shop with us. Honestly, I saw a very similar trend in Asia. You had a bunch of specialists who came in and said, I'm not going to be constrained by what stores offer. I'm going to offer something that's different, that's more convenient, that's faster, that's fresher, offers products you don't get in the stores. And you just saw this explosive growth. And honestly, during the time I was there, that explosive growth destroyed the profitability of the offline players. And that's kind of what I think we can see, what we're beginning to see in Europe. As winners emerge, they're taking volumes out of the stores, and then the store economics begin to collapse because there's high fixed cost in the stores.
Oh, wow. So it's not that the online is unprofitable and inefficient, but at some critical tipping point, it starts biting from offline so much that offline doesn't make as much sense and needs to be reimagined as well.
Correct. Now, as you start to see customers shift to online, there's a high fixed cost in the store.
Yeah.
The store economics move backwards quite quickly because of the very high fixed cost you've got, which of course is one of the reasons that traditional grocers are reluctant to move volumes out of the stores.
That's so interesting. And I have so many questions. I'm sorry. And how do you, where do you draw this line? Like, is it again like the market, the city penetration, or when is this tipping point when the offline grocers really start feeling it? What did you see in Asia?
I think it is probably, you do see it most at cities, and you do see you do see some cities which are dense, and offer good economics online typically run ahead. But the customer demand is universal. Let's be clear. I don't think there's anywhere in the world where customers don't want good deliveries delivered to them. So yeah, Prague probably has one of the highest penetrations online, but that's because it's got one of the best offers. Similarly, I'd say London has probably run ahead of the rest of the UK, but the rest of the UK is also catching up because everybody wants good groceries delivered to them.
And what do you see right now, the main issues of online groceries, and how does Veloq help solving them? Because it has been a topic for years, maybe decade, that somehow online will happen, but nobody really had properly crack it yet.
Yeah.
And everybody is saying how expensive it is, how they're losing money on it, and still keep investing into it, trying to figure out what is it going to be. But in the end of the day, we have seen even giants like Amazon really struggling with it. And there are not that many cases in the world where the path is successful, even on the trend level. So what are the main issues again, and how are you planning to help the market solve it?
I think there's a number of things you need to do to make this work, and make this work really well so you can drive growth. I think the first is you've got to offer a proper full range. And by that, I mean, if you think in a store, you go into a store, you love the fresh bakery, and the grocers will typically put the bakery somewhere near the entrance or somewhere where they want to draw traffic to for the smell. In Veloq, we have fresh bakeries in our FCs, and we use that in a similar way as a hero product, and everybody knows you just get great baked products, baked goods on Veloq. And so you need that full range. So whatever that is in the market, 20, 30,000 SKUs, but you need to make sure you've got that really excellent product. You've got to make sure the bananas are being handled perfectly. You've got to make sure that all of the fresh goods are being handled perfectly. In some markets, it's about the fishmonger. So you've got to make sure that you are actually offering a really excellent product range. And I think that's kind of that's the first thing you need to be looking at. And frankly, that's then important for the economics, because delivering bigger baskets is a lot more efficient and economic than delivering smaller baskets. So those two go hand in hand. I think the second thing is you need to offer really true convenience. And one of the things we've done very successfully is offering same-day slots. So if you look on, typically if you place an order in Prague, you'll be able to get a slot in about 3 hours. And if you're paying for a premium slot, you get it in 60 minutes. But the standard slots are in about 3 hours' time. That gives you just an extraordinary level of convenience, being able to order and have food delivered for tonight. And that's the full range. And then, if you're a premium member, you get 15-minute slots. again, which is again absolutely extraordinary convenience that you know when your groceries are going to arrive within 15 minutes. And I think that ability to offer full range delivered same day, really conveniently, is just becomes incredibly compelling. And that's frankly what's driven our growth. But then that's all got to be delivered efficiently. And that's kind of where our technology kind of comes in, because our technology, our automated FCs can orchestrate all the channels we're talking about, be it chill, be it fresh, be it bakery, be it pharmacy. And it can bring all those products that need to be handled differently together and manage that complexity in a way that's easy to operate and efficient in terms of labor through the automation. So for us, what we need to do and how we'll help our partners is by full range, real convenience for the customers, and then doing that efficiently in a way that's easy to operate for our partners. And that's the kind of what we think of as the kind of the magic of the proposition, is bringing those things together.
Based on what I hear, the grocers really need to reimagine themselves with you. And it's quite a heavy lift for this, old-fashioned, sometimes, guys to really start thinking completely out of the box. Because based on what I hear, you need to build completely different fulfillment centers. You need completely different team, different mindset, different approach to things. And what are you offering to them? Like, you're coming in and providing the consulting, the whole playbook, how to organize everything, and you enable them with software, or what's the plan?
Our job, well, first I'd say I just challenge slightly the way you phrase that. Grocers, successful grocers have always been very good at listening to their customers. Mm-hmm. And yes, it's led to a certain way of operating in stores, and it will lead to a certain different way of operating online. But it is going back to listening to your customers. And I think everything I was talking about proposition, what works in Prague may not work in Madrid. It is about developing the right proposition for the market. In terms of the way we help, I put it very simply. Our job is to help our partners be successful. Software and fulfillment centers and last mile are part of that. But also, frankly, we need to provide the support. We need to share our expertise. We've been doing this successfully in 5 markets now for 10 years. So our job is not just the software. We are there to provide the solution, which will be training, which will be operational support, which will be knowledge transfer, and the package that really helps our partners be successful.
Got it. And again, my question wasn't like to offend anyone, but there's still reality that when for decades you're used to selling the shelf, really, and you understand how the footfall works and how to operate offline, you do need a very big mindset shift, no matter how well you listen to your customers, right? And it is a difficult ego thing as well.
I absolutely agree. And what grocers have become extremely good at does need to be challenged. But also what you're seeing, frankly, is those who are doing it well are the ones who are winning. You are seeing some pretty phenomenal growth rates out there from some of the big players who are investing in this. I think if last time I checked, Walmart was recording kind of 20 to 30% growth online. So, Carrefour was not far off. When you are making the investment, which some of these guys now are, you can achieve pretty high growth. And as I say, I think you're getting to that point where you can't just say we're going to continue as we did. I think it's no longer becoming an option. You do really need to adapt and embrace this now.
Makes sense. And having seen how it was happening in Asia and how it is happening in Asia now, but as I understand, right, you were standing at the roots of all digitalization there. What are we doing wrong here or different here that we should learn from Asia? Because online shopping, any online shopping, food delivery, e-commerce, live shopping on social media, is just a different level there, and grocery
It is.
is not an exception. So, how would you compare the two worlds, if I can call it this way? And what are the things that we should take from there to increase the adoption, to grow the speed of the development, the technology, marketing, maybe?
I think the kind of the biggest single difference is probably kind of how it started. So in Asia, it was e-commerce specialists who made the market. So if you really have to look at how it developed, actually JD, if I take China, JD.com started to grow the market first. Actually, Alibaba wasn't huge in grocery, but needed to respond and developed Hema. And actually, the entire market then developed from specialists trying to reinvent grocery rather than grocers trying to move into online. And as a result, you ended up with a much, much faster rate of innovation than I think you've seen in the West. And frankly, you had some innovation that worked and some innovation that didn't work, and we all follow the ones that worked. But you just see that speed of innovation, that speed of trial was happening much quicker. And frankly, that speed of adaptation to what you were talking about before of how you need to operate and what it means to offer a great customer proposition online was just they were quicker to get there because of where they came from. But on the other side, what did that mean? That meant they ate the offline players' lunch, and the profitability absolutely tanked. And what we were talking about earlier, you definitely in places reached this tipping point where stores started to become unsustainable. And I think that is the lesson for this side of the world. If you don't start to embrace this, somebody else will. And that just fundamentally changes the economics of the market.
So does it mean that the grocers, again, need to not just switch the mindset from the perspectives that we were discussing, like how to sell, to whom to sell, how to operate it, but also who should be operating it? Do you think that could be the answer, that completely new people need to be involved in this transformation? And that being said, the companies like Veloq, right? Or internal teams.
Yeah. As I said, one of the things I think grocers are very good at is listening to their customers. And they've had to be. And I think that is the core skill of any retail business is making sure you're listening to your customers and giving them what they need, giving them what they're asking for. And I think you shouldn't underestimate that. And I've seen a number of successful ways of setting up this business. Sometimes with traditional grocers running it, sometimes with new digital people running these businesses. So I don't think that necessarily is the decider in itself. I think what is important is it gets set up as a semi-independent business, because as you mentioned earlier, you've got to think about it differently. And if you think about it with the same financial metrics as you think about a store, it becomes incredibly difficult to run. If you think about it at the same pace you think about a store from a commercial point of view, again, it becomes very difficult to run because digital marketing is an hourly process, not a 2-weekly promotional cycle. And that becomes, and embracing those types of things is I think what's important. And I think that's about making it an independent business in its own.
And how far do you think are we from Asia, let's say in years? And where do you see the biggest growth points currently for the online grocery?
So I think we're different from Asia, I think is probably we should say. As I said, they started with players who were very different developing this. I believe we will see similar penetrations online in the long run in the West, but I think that's going to happen with bricks and mortar players still taking the majority share of it, because I think they will learn to adapt, and frankly, they're good businesses. So I think we are behind. If you look at take some of the numbers, we're probably 3, 4, 5 years behind in terms of actual penetration numbers. Having said that, I think the model will be different. And I think we shouldn't just assume that we're going to be a cut and paste to what happens in Asia, both from a consumer point of view and from a business model point of view.
So you're saying that in Asia it was replaced by new players and it started to be like online versus offline, while in the West, Europe, US, as the grocers are reinventing themselves, they are going to be the ones driving this.
It's different by market, and if I take China, yes, a lot of it has been online specialists who've gone and made this transformation. If I took South Korea, for example, it's a mix. Coupang has gone and has done a very effective job both in food and non-food, but the likes of Shinsegae, the likes of Lotte are still there. They're still fighting. I believe they will probably be successful. Similarly, in Japan, I think it's going to actually look like the West. So I think it's going to be different by market. And similarly, I don't think there's going to be one right outcome for every European market. I think the relative strengths, the relative abilities of every player to adapt, of every player to use their brand, use what they're good at, will determine how successful they are. And frankly, I think if I take Czechia, I think I don't see a limit to how far Rolik can go in Czechia, for example. You've got a really strong brand that's been around for 10 years and is continuing to grow, close to 30% a year. That's not generally what happens after 10 years. We're not slowing up. I think we could well be much more like China from that point of view.
The market is very big, right? The opportunity in groceries is immense, and the amount of work that you guys have with Rolik and Veloq is quite big.
Oh, it's huge. We're talking. The grocery market in North America and Europe is in the trillions. You don't 10% online. We're talking hundreds of billions of online grocery sales. This is a huge market, and almost every country, this is the fastest growing channel. It's a tremendously big and exciting space to operate in.
At the same time, there is another side of that. Aggregators are developing groceries a lot, the likes of Uber Eats, Deliveroo's. Yep. Everybody is on the topic because everybody understands how big the market is, and it's developing pretty quickly. The demand is growing. So why cannot supermarkets, existing brick and mortar players, just rely on that and let the innovation happen from the aggregator side?
Look, I'm absolutely not anti-aggregator. And we ourselves have done some partnerships in Germany, as you know, with Cuspa, and they are very beneficial for bringing some customers to the brand. And you're probably bringing in slightly different customers, and importantly, on slightly different missions. And I think that's that's useful. And actually, it's useful in terms of scaling a business and probably reaching some customers that we might not otherwise reach. Having said that, if you want to do a proper grocery shop, you will never be able to replicate the customer experience on a general platform. Amazon, best will in the world, is built to be a non-food platform. If you just compare the shopping journey on a non-food platform compared to Rolik and our app and our website, it is a much smoother journey once you've got your shopping baskets already there. Once you can see the sell-by dates, all the things that you just need to be able to do that are much easier to see on a site that is designed specifically for grocery. And I think that's kind of super important. Then the other thing I'd say is, ultimately you want to have as much direct customer interface as possible and own your own data. You want to own your customers.
So that you can keep on listening, right?
And you can keep on listening, and you can keep on marketing, and you can keep on adapting and improving. And I think that to me is really important. So I'm absolutely not anti-aggregators. And as our strategy shows, we believe in them. But fundamentally, you will give the customers a better proposition, and you'll be able to improve that more if you're serving them directly.
So do you think that these models, looking forward 10 years, will they coexist? and learn how to really benefit each other, like what you guys are doing with the Rohlik in Germany and Volt? Or do you think you will start competing with each other in the end of the day?
I think the answer is both. I think there is a role for both. I believe the best way of doing a big weekly basket or a proper grocery shop will be with the grocer, or with Cuspa or with Rolik, because that's where you get the best experience. That's where we have the best opportunity to explain our range and explain our proposition to our customers. Having said that, there will always be some customers who are on an aggregator, be it on Volt, be it on Amazon, possibly different customers we haven't had access to yet, but with a different mission. We've got the opportunity to serve them. And from the point of view of Amazon or Volt, they're doing the cross sell, and that's fine. We'll serve them, and we'll serve them with our excellent proposition equally, and hopefully they'll be delighted. But I think they are different, and I think they can be complementary. That said, will both always try and compete? Yes, of course they will. That's a healthy market.
That's where more revolution, evolution, and transformation is coming from, right? To serve the customers best and fulfill more and more needs and shopping missions.
Exactly.
Rohlik has been very good at it. Listening to the customers, they were quite ahead of the curve. You were quite ahead of the curve and achieved great results in building and scaling online grocery. Software and automation is a big part of this success. And I really wonder why you want to start giving it away to your competition. Is it you guys are that confident, or you're not planning to do it in the markets where you're operating at, or what's the plan?
Look, online grocery, it is a tough business. You need to build scale in each market you're in, which is what we're doing in the markets we're in. We are investing, we're growing, and we're being very successful in those 5 markets. Having said that, it's probably going to be a while before we've got 20% share of the US. I don't think we're going to. There's only so fast we can go.
Right.
And we are, as I said earlier, we are talking hundreds of billions of sales here, and we have an opportunity to take this product, which has some real magic in terms of the ability to offer a customer proposition that we talked about efficiently, and use that to serve our potential partners in the US or in other countries in Europe. Amazon didn't say, "Oh, we might be serving other retailers with AWS." That wasn't what they didn't say. "Oh, we'll never, that's going to take away everything we've got." So for my mind, Rolik is Rolik. The Rolik brands in each country will continue to be, in my view, tremendously successful. And frankly, they're my clients, and they're my showcase to show what we can do with the technology and what the technology is proven for.
Right.
But we're not. This enables us to access new markets. This enables us to grow faster, and frankly, will enable us to continue to invest in even better technology for the future.
And which markets do you see the most interesting for you as Veloq now, the most forward-looking? What markets are you betting on the most?
I tend to see it as much around partners as I see it around markets. And I can see opportunity in 20 markets, or if I have to pick a number, there's a lot of markets out there I believe our technology would be effective and can be transformational in. I think, though, what we're really looking for is to partner with those players who can see the benefits of this and kind of can take the inspiration to say, actually, if we partner with you, we can really see how this helps us grow. And we can really see how not only we'll just take our business and make it a bit better, but actually this is going to take our business and we can treble our sales in 3 years, because we will suddenly be offering something that is truly differentiated in the market. And I think that for me is the key. And I think there's a number of those players. Maybe there's almost one in every major market, or a few in every major market, but those are the guys we want to work with. the ones who are going to really go and say, we can grow, we can be successful with this, and we want to, and we want to work with them.
Very interesting. It has been like 20 years that Ocado has been working on digitalization of grocery, and there are other players as well.
Mm.
Of course, the situation is not the same as it was 20 years ago, but there is still quite a journey to go.
Mm-hmm.
How do you see the path for the classic brick and mortar grocers transitioning themselves? How long is it going to take? When do you think we can see some major shifts in their development, in their behavior, and potentially what could be the trend that could supersede this development base?
You're asking me to peer further into the future than I know the answers to. Look, I think I'd start by saying, I think a lot of there are big shifts going on at the moment. Just look at some of the investments that some of the big players, look at the investments Walmart has made in this space, look at the investments Carrefour is making in this space. You are seeing there are big shifts going on. This is no longer a kind of a small business. Now that varies by country, even by country within those businesses. And I think the competitive pressure also kind of matters by country. The reason, go back, why is the US probably now ahead? Because everybody felt the need to invest when Amazon bought Whole Foods.
Right.
As a result of Amazon buying Whole Foods, all the grocers felt actually this is something we now need to take seriously. We're seeing that competitive threat, and then they start to invest. And guess what? That's why the US has suddenly kind of gone ahead of Europe in terms of its market share. So I don't think we're going to suddenly see one day a kind of a revolution where everybody says we're closing all our stores and it's all about online. And I'm actually not an advocate that says stores have no future. I think stores do have a future. They'll probably look a little bit different and need to be a little bit more showroom-like. So I think absolutely you need stores, and I don't think grocers are going to get rid of those. But you are going to see continued and a shift in focus of your investments towards digital and towards that holistic digital offer that really starts to embrace the customer. That means kind of understanding and owning your data, for example. And we invest a lot of money in terms of our AI to really understand our customers. And I think that's things so you can begin to actually say, we really understand our customer behavior because you can track them better online. You can use that to work better with your suppliers, starts to become the unlock of this.
What you guys are proposing is again the mindset shift, but also the shift of how grocers would be operating. And there are two types of markets. The ones where the grocery scene is ran by, at most part of it, by like 2, 3, 5 players. Yep. And there are still markets, for example, in LATAM, where it's actually quite equally divided and the density is pretty small and it's a different scene.
Yeah.
Where do you see the shift to online playing a bigger part? Because the competition seems to be lower in LATAM, let's say, right? And there is more room for one player digitalizing itself and changing the way they operate, really winning the market.
Yeah.
While at the same time, in the markets where there are big established players with a lot of money, a lot of customer information, a lot of intelligence, we can also make an argument that they can make their position stronger with this reinvention and start biting from the other bigger players. What do you think about that?
My view of the world is this always depends on who's taking the initiative. And as I said, when you look at Asia, it was specialists who took the initiative. They drove this market. and you ended up with a certain type of outcome. If you look at some of the European markets, you really haven't seen much investment. All of the big grocers have held back from investing hugely in some of the markets, and you're seeing actually the specialists coming in. If I look in Germany, I would argue that the offline players haven't invested a huge amount online, and actually that's one of the reasons the market hasn't developed. And actually, probably there's space for customers to develop, because actually it's a market that's been relatively late. So I think it's always quite dependent on who takes the initiative. Why is the UK and France ahead in terms of penetration? Because you had players there who decided to invest in this space, and actually to some extent they create the market. The market gets created by investment. The demand is always there. Customers always want the convenience of groceries, quality groceries being delivered to them. It's just a question of who's actually taking the initiative to go and do that, because as we've talked about, it's bloody hard. So anybody who cracks it has that opportunity.
And are you guys going to be the ones now who's also entering the scene to drive it? Or are you rather not the driver, but the enabler, and the initiative is still going to be on the player?
I like to think we're both. Our job is not going to be to run their businesses for them. If
Yeah.
you work with a major grocer, it has to be their customers, their proposition. It needs to be their business. But that said, we will certainly enable it. We can certainly enable them to do something different, which I believe will delight their customers. Work hand in hand with them to drive it. This is not purely a partnership where we plan to hand over a bit of software. This is a partnership where we want to work with them, help them operate it, and help them succeed. And our job is to help our partners succeed. It is not just to sell a bit of software.
Richard, that's very exciting. And it's been a great pleasure talking to you, learning a
Thank you.
bunch about online grocery and the journey that is ahead of us. It's definitely exciting for me as a customer, and for me as a person who is enthusiastic about the evolution that is happening on the market. Thank you very much for joining the conversation. If you have anything to say to the audience, the floor is yours.
Stefan, I just want to say thank you for having me. It's a great pleasure to talk about it. And we're really excited to get out there and start helping revolutionize this market. There's a huge opportunity for everybody.
Exciting times. Thank you so much, Richard. And thank you guys very much for listening. Hope you enjoyed it and learned as much as I did today. Thank you. Bye bye.